Hey guys, welcome to Y&R Daily Update YouTube channel. Today's topics. The news transcript reveals a deeply emotional and tense narrative centered on the Newman family in Genoa City, highlighting the complex dynamics of control, betrayal, forgiveness, and family loyalty. The story primarily revolves around Claire, Victor, Kyle, Nikki, Jack, and the scheming Audra, whose intertwined relationships and secrets drive the family toward a looming crisis. Claire confronts Victor, her father, whose authoritarian control has left her emotionally scarred and distant. Despite her cold exterior, Claire is filled with pain and doubt, grappling with years of unhealed wounds and her struggle for independence. Kyle, Claire's former love and confidant, is burdened by past mistakes and secrets that threaten their fragile bond. His sincere confession and Claire's reluctant forgiveness mark a tentative step toward rebuilding trust, though suspicion remains. Nikki, weary from ongoing family strife, appeals to Jack to use his influence to help mediate tensions, especially between Claire and Victor, hoping to prevent further destruction. Jack accepts the responsibility, recognizing the delicate balance of understanding and tolerance needed to hold the family together. Meanwhile, Victor begins to question his rigid stance, realizing his controlling ways have pushed Claire away and caused significant damage. Claire's decision to forgive Kyle, although not fully trusting him, signals her growing strength and resolve to reclaim her life from the shadows of her father's dominance. Concurrently, Audra, a manipulative figure entwined in this power struggle, faces defeat but plots a vengeful comeback, wielding knowledge of family secrets as leverage. The transcript captures the emotional vulnerability and complexity of each character as they navigate betrayal, loyalty, and the desire for peace. The Newman family's story is a microcosm of pain, hope, and the enduring struggle between power and love in the turbulent world of Genoa City. Ultimately, the narrative conveys that despite deep wounds and betrayals, the courage to face the truth, forgive, and seek reconciliation can open pathways toward healing and a fragile new beginning. Spoilers reveal the undercurrents in the Newman family are rising violently again, bringing everything to the brink of a new crisis. The atmosphere in the Newman mansion becomes suffocatingly suffocating when Claire confronts Victor. But what makes the whole family hold their breath is not the direct confrontation, but what happens behind closed doors where everyone tries to control, hide, or protect each other with complicated calculations and unhealed pain. Claire, with a cold and calm appearance, walks out of the room where she just had a tense conversation with Victor. Her eyes sparkle with determination, but her voice is softer than usual. However, no one can deny that after all, what Claire really feels is loss, doubt, and pain to the core. Her disappointment with Victor grows, especially after all attempts at reconciliation are rejected or crushed by his indomitable ego. In Claire's mind, years of control and hurt have created a strong shell, but it is also the very thing that is leaving her alone as she has to choose her own path forward. Meanwhile, Kyle, who once held an important place in Claire's heart, is torn by the secrets he has hidden. His past mistakes, bad choices, and youthful recklessness have led him to make irreparable mistakes. But what hurts him most is knowing that all of them will one day be exposed, perhaps by the very person he has always sought forgiveness from. It is not Claire's coldness towards him that worries Kyle the most, but her easy forgiveness, which means that Claire has truly changed, become distant, and may never trust him again. Kyle knows that an apology alone is not enough to mend the rift that has formed between them, but still hopes that her sincerity will be the only key that can open the door to reconciliation. Just when it seems that everything is gradually cooling down, a new upheaval appears. Jack, who stands at the center of many generations of fighting and reconciliation in the Abbott family, receives a special request from Nikki. Nikki does not appear with her usual proud appearance, but is tired and worried from the depths of her soul. A state of mind of a woman who is too familiar with storms, but still cannot adapt to the chaos of her family. Nikki hopes that Jack will listen to what she is about to say, because it is not only related to the peace of the Newman family, but also affects Kyle and Claire. Nikki, with all sincerity, wishes that Jack will help her stabilize things or at least not aggravate the tension between the Newman and Abbott families, especially at this sensitive time. She knew that Jack could not completely separate himself from Victor's decisions, but she still trusted his ability and understanding of other people's psychology. Nikki also wanted Jack to use his influence to advise Kyle because she believed that Kyle was the only one who could calm Claire down and see things more clearly. For Nikki, keeping Claire from being drawn into Victor's spiral of revenge was a top priority, because she understood that the relationship between father and daughter was inherently fragile and that just a small incident was enough to cause everything to collapse. Jack listened silently to every word, contemplating his new responsibility. He saw in Nikki's eyes a fear that she rarely showed. The fear that her own family would be torn apart forever by Victor's stubbornness and Claire's rebellion. Although Jack himself had been in conflict with Victor many times, he did not want to make things worse this time because he knew Nikki's hurt was real and she deserved a moment of peace amidst the constant turmoil. Not long after, Nikki found Kyle and skillfully led the conversation, emphasizing that Claire still valued his advice. Nikki suggested that Kyle try talking to Claire, advising her to take a step back and think carefully before deciding to confront Victor directly. Nikki knew that if Claire continued down the path of resistance, Victor would not be lenient, and the result could only be that everyone would be hurt. Kay felt the pressure Nikki was putting on him, but he did not refuse. After all, Kay still loved Claire in some way. Maybe not romantic love, but a deep bond between two people who had shared many secrets, pain, and hope. Kyle decided to take the initiative to meet Claire on a quiet afternoon where they could both talk without being disturbed by anyone. The conversation between Kyle and Claire took place in a heavy atmosphere. Kyle no longer beat around the bush or hide anything. Instead, he proactively admitted all the mistakes he had made detail by detail without avoidance or justification. He talked about the things he had done wrong, the moments of weakness that had led him astray, and the deep regret when he realized he had hurt the only person who had ever truly trusted him. Claire was silent at first. Her eyes seemed to penetrate Kyle's every word and expression. She did not show anger, only disappointment and a deep sadness that could not be named. But then Claire decided to speak up, not to blame, but to free herself from the mixed emotions that had been tormenting her all this time. Claire talked about how she had lost too much trust in others, about the wounds that would never heal, and the loneliness that grew in her soul. She doesn't ask Kyle to atone, nor does she expect any future for them. What Claire needs right now is the truth, no matter how painful it is. Their honest dialogue is the foundation for a new peace, even if it is only a momentary peace in the midst of life's storms. After the conversation, Kay feels relieved, but also hurt because he knows that there are wounds that cannot be erased, no matter how much time passes. Claire does the same. She realizes that sometimes forgiveness is not to make others feel at ease, but to free herself from the shackles of the past. From that moment on, both of them choose to face reality, no longer avoiding, no longer pretending to be strong or lying. At the same time, Jack realizes that his role is not only to stand between the forces fighting for power, but also to hold the core values of family bonds. He took the initiative to meet Victor to clarify his point of view. No matter how many conflicts there were, in the end, family members still needed understanding, sympathy, and tolerance if they did not want to lose everything. Victor, although not easily accepting advice, also began to reconsider his attitude towards Claire and those around him. As for Nikki, although she could not completely eliminate all risks of breakdown, at least she had planted a new seed of hope for the family, where forgiveness, honesty, and the courage to face the past were the medicine to heal wounds that seemed irreparable. The relationship between Claire, Kyle, Jack, Victor, and Nikki will continue to experience new challenges. But it is from the moments of facing the truth that they will learn to cherish what remains. That is family love, the opportunity to start over, the hope for a future that is no longer burdened by a painful past. And Genoa City, as always, continues to be a place of both tragedy and hope. A place where anyone, no matter how wrong they may be, can find their own light, as long as they dare to face it, dare to admit it, and dare to forgive first of all themselves. In an atmosphere thick with suspicion and discord, the Newman mansion becomes the center of an unprecedented series of tense events. The story between Victor and Claire seems to be just a normal father-daughter argument. But inside there is an undercurrent of secrets that have never been revealed. Claire stands opposite Victor with a cold calm, her eyes shining with the sadness that has been suppressed by the years of growing up under the shadow of a father who has always controlled and imposed without ever truly listening to her heart. Victor, with the instincts of a father and a leader, feels his power is threatened. But he cannot imagine that his control will push Claire further away than ever. Claire has just left Victor's room, but instead of seeking the familiar loneliness, she chooses a different direction to meet Kyle. Their relationship was once a source of encouragement, the only comfort Claire found in a world that was always ready to tear her soul to pieces. But Kyle was no longer the Kyle of his innocent days. He carried heavy secrets, mistakes from the past that now, when everything was on the brink of collapse, he was forced to face. See found in the small garden behind the villa, which used to be their private place. He took the initiative to confess everything, the mistakes, the betrayals, the wrong decisions he had made behind her back. Claire did not cry, did not get angry, just listened silently. Her eyes were cold as ice, but deep inside was an indescribable pain. When Kyle finished, Claire only said one sentence that froze the atmosphere. "I forgive you, but I cannot forget." Claire's forgiveness did not make Kyle feel relieved. On the contrary, it made him feel even more guilty and helpless for not being able to regain the trust he had lost. Meanwhile, Jack received a surprise call from Nikki. Nikki's presence at the Abbott mansion that evening was like an alarm signal. Nikki was no longer the woman who always maintained a perfect appearance. She was trembling, her eyes filled with fear of a future where everything in the family could be broken forever. Nikki told Jack about her only wish at the moment to heal the rift before it was too late. About her fear that Victor would push Claire further away just because of his stubbornness. She hoped that Jack would not continue to add fuel to the fire, especially when the wars between Newman and Abbott always brought so much damage to the next generations. Nikki even suggested that Jack take advantage of the feelings between Kyle and Claire so that Kyle could help convince Claire to cool down, calm down, and not oppose Victor anymore. Nikki understood that only Kyle could truly touch Claire's deepest feelings. Jack quietly agreed, although he knew better than anyone that what Nikki wanted was not simple. Jack then spoke to Kyle, relaying Nikki's wishes and advising Kyle to do what was necessary to keep Claire from falling into a never-ending cycle of confrontation with Victor. Jack also admitted that for the first time in years, he felt helpless as he watched the two most powerful families in Genoa City destroy each other because of pride and unresolved wounds. That night, Kay decided to meet Claire again. This time, not only as someone who had loved her, but as the only friend she could rely on. In the quiet room, lit only by the pale yellow light from a small lamp, Kay spoke with all sincerity. He told her about his fear of losing Claire, about the feeling of being torn between loyalty to his family and his feelings for her. Claire listened quietly. Each breath seemed to suffocate her already scarred heart. After a moment of silence, Claire suddenly told Kyle about her childhood, about the long night she cried in her room because she felt abandoned, about the fear of never being accepted for who she was, about the pressure to be perfect in Victor's eyes. It was the first time Claire had truly revealed her deepest wounds to Kyle. She talked about why she had to be strong, why she couldn't and wouldn't give in to Victor because that would be a betrayal of herself. The conversation lasted late into the night, and by the end, there were no more questions about the past or blame, but a quiet understanding that they were both victims of mistakes made by adults. Kyle promised never to turn his back on Claire again, and Claire accepted that while they couldn't go back to the way things were, they could still build a new trust together slowly, little by little, even if Victor would never accept it. Meanwhile, Nikki returned to the Newman mansion with a heavy heart. But at least she had planted a small hope for the future. She sought out Victor, tried to talk again. Nikki reminded Victor of what they had lost during the long journey of power and hatred, of the children who should have lived with family joy instead of being caught up in endless wars. For the first time in many years, Victor was silent for a long time in the face of Nikki's tears. He realized that he was old, exhausted by battles that brought nothing but loneliness and loss. That night, Victor decided to take the initiative, to meet Claire. No more scolding, no more imposing. He simply asked his daughter if she was happy and listened. Claire was still firm, but her eyes softened a little. She didn't answer. But the small smile at the corner of her lips was enough for Victor to realize that there was still a fragile bond between the two. Genoa City was in a rare peace at night, but everyone knew it was only temporary. Everyone had their own wounds, their own secrets that had never been told, but no matter what, they were still a family. And with just a glimmer of hope, everything could change. Kyle quietly left Claire's room, leaving her alone to face her jumbled thoughts. But in her heart, a feeling of unprecedented relief rose. In the distance, Jack looked out the window, thinking about what had happened, was happening, and would happen. He knew that challenges still lay ahead, that dark forces and conspiracies were still smoldering, waiting for the right moment to rise. But he also knew that as long as the family members were brave enough to be honest, to forgive, nothing was impossible. And then tomorrow begins again in Genoa City, where relationships are torn apart, but also where hope can always be reborn. as long as one does not give up in the face of one's own darkness. After a series of events in Genoa City, Clare and Kyle's relationship is at an unforeseen crossroads. Clare has long been confident that she knows Kyle, but doubts begin to gnaw at her as rumors about the nice trip swirl, raising concerns about Kyle's true loyalty. Kyle, meanwhile, is burdened with secrets, wavering between confessing everything or choosing to keep the dark side of the truth to protect himself, or more accurately, to save a fragile hope for Clare. Clare is not someone who forgives betrayal easily, especially when the feeling of being deceived is greater than the pain of loss. But the feelings between her and Kyle are more than just love. They are a deep bond, memories, and hopes that have been intertwined through many storms. So, as things come crashing down, Clare is both heartbroken and filled with doubt. Will she be able to forgive, or will her anger wash away everything she once had? Kyle, facing mounting pressure from Clare and her family, understands that the truth cannot be avoided forever. The events in Nice have changed him not just because of his mistake with Audra, but because of the consequences that have followed, forcing him to question his conscience. The price for that moment of weakness is that his relationship with Clare is on the brink of collapse, and Kyle himself doubts whether he is worthy of her trust anymore. The tense conversation between Kyle and Clare takes place in the golden-lit room of the Abbott mansion. Kyle knows he can no longer hide it, but he also doesn't have the courage to admit the whole truth, especially in intimate moments with Audra, when all the boundaries between right and wrong are blurred by feelings of loneliness and despair. Instead, Kyle chose to tell Clare about the kiss with Audra, about how he was caught up in Audra's scheme to seduce Victor and manipulate everyone for his own purposes. Clare was stunned when she heard Kyle's confession. She had been suspicious, afraid, but deep down she still hoped that it was all just malicious rumors. When the truth was confirmed, all her emotions exploded. Pain, disappointment, anger. She couldn't believe that the person who had been her only support could make her feel so small and betrayed. But what made Clare even angrier was Victor, the man who had controlled every corner of her life, now destroyed the only good thing left: her love for Kyle. Clare realized that behind her strong facade, it was Victor who had broken all her relationships. He did not hesitate to use any means to control his children's lives, even if it meant interfering in Clare and Kyle's private affairs. Knowing this, Clare's anger towards Victor grew to the point where she was willing to overlook some of Kyle's mistakes. Because to her, the most despicable person was the father who turned life into hell. Kyle was unexpectedly forgiven by Clare, at least in the eyes of everyone. Her coldness was no longer a fatal wound, but a shield that helped both of them hide their unhealed wounds. But there was still an invisible distance between them, full of suspicion and caution. Clare did not completely trust Kyle, but she did not want Victor to continue to control her emotions and decisions. Outside that vortex, Audra became the center of another power struggle. She used all her tricks to seduce Victor, hoping to manipulate him for her own benefit, especially to protect the Vronte project from the risk of being killed. However, Victor, with all the experience of a sly fox in the business world, saw through all of Audra's schemes. When she realized she could not control Victor, Audra experienced deep disappointment and anxiety about the future of her career. Victor's cutting off of Abrante's funding was a death sentence for Audrey-Unca's ambitions. Unable to bear the loss, Audra stormed off, leaving behind a series of unfinished plots and a heart pounding with fear of revenge. Mihot, that this price would be Clare's distance and the disappointment of his loved ones. Victor told himself to be strong, but deep down, he still wished to receive Clare's forgiveness, even though it was becoming more and more distant. That night, when the whole of Genoa City had fallen silent, Clare sat alone by the window, remembering everything that had happened. She realized that she was no longer the weak girl who was swept away by the decisions of others. She told herself that no matter what happened in the past, no one, not Victor, Kyle, or anyone else, would be able to control her life anymore. The decision to forgive Kyle was the beginning of a new chapter where Clare was independent, strong, and ready to face any challenge, including betrayal and constant shock from those closest to her. As for Audra, after her defeat by Victor, she is determined not to let herself fall into the darkness. She begins to plot a new game, using the secrets she has learned about Victor, Kyle, and Clare to prepare for a spectacular comeback, regardless of the means. Audra understands that in the world of the strong, no one is allowed to fall for too long. Just one mistake, and everything will slip away forever. And so under the dim lights of Genoa City, each person continues their own battle. Clare tries to regain her autonomy and heal old wounds. Kyle tries to mend lost trust. Victor continues to struggle between power and family affection. And Audra, in the dark, prepares for a merciless revenge. All of these people are walking on a fragile line between forgiveness and betrayal, between power and family love, where every small decision can change their lives forever. Because in Genoa City, no one is completely innocent and no one is allowed to stop fighting, even when the person they are facing is their closest loved one. Highlights: Claire confronts her controlling father Victor, revealing deep-seated family tensions. Kyle confesses past mistakes to Claire, initiating a painful but honest dialogue. Nikki seeks Jack's help to stabilize the Newman Abbott family conflicts. Victor begins to reconsider his harsh approach toward Claire and family. Claire forgives Kyle but struggles to fully trust him again. Audra's schemes are exposed, and she plots a calculated revenge. The family faces a new chapter of healing, honesty, and fragile hope. Key insights: the complexity of parental control and its emotional toll. Victor's authoritarian approach toward Claire has created a barrier of mistrust and pain, illustrating how controlling family dynamics can lead to emotional estrangement. Claire's coldness masks profound hurt, emphasizing the psychological damage caused by unyielding familial power struggles. This highlights the importance of empathy and listening within family relationships to prevent alienation. The power and limits of forgiveness. Claire's forgiveness of Kyle, despite his betrayals, underscores that forgiveness is not synonymous with forgetting or full reconciliation. It serves as a personal liberation from past pain rather than a guarantee of restored trust. This nuanced portrayal reveals how forgiveness can be a complex, ongoing process requiring time and emotional work. Mediation and peacemaking as crucial roles in family conflicts. Nikki's appeal to Jack to act as a mediator reflects the crucial role that neutral or respected family members play in de-escalating conflicts. Jack's acceptance of this responsibility highlights that family peace often depends on individuals willing to prioritize understanding and compassion over power or pride. The fragility of family bonds amidst secrets and betrayals. The transcript reveals how secrets and past mistakes, especially those kept hidden or unaddressed, can destabilize even the closest relationships. Kyle's internal conflict and Claire's suspicions demonstrate the delicate balance between honesty and protection in maintaining trust within families. The intersection of power, manipulation, and revenge. Audra's character embodies the darker side of family and business dynamics, where manipulation and strategic moves create further chaos. Her determination to use secrets as weapons highlights how power struggles extend beyond personal relationships into broader battles for control and influence, complicating efforts for peace. Healing through truth and vulnerability. The turning point in the narrative is the honest conversation between Claire and Kyle, where vulnerabilities are shared openly. This moment of truth is depicted as a foundation for potential healing, showing that genuine communication is essential to overcoming past wounds and rebuilding fractured relationships. Hope amidst turmoil in Genoa City. Despite the ongoing conflicts, the story ends on a note of cautious optimism. The characters' willingness to face their own darkness, admit mistakes, and seek forgiveness signals that even in a setting rife with betrayal and power struggles, hope for renewal and family unity remains alive. This theme resonates as a universal message about resilience and the enduring strength of familial bonds. The transcript's rich, emotional landscape and intricate character interplay provide a compelling exploration of family dynamics, underscoring that love, though tested by betrayal and control, can survive through honesty, forgiveness, and mutual effort. The Newman family's saga is a poignant reflection on the challenges and possibilities inherent in repairing broken ties and finding light in the darkest moments.